Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Might be better if you can't hear me. Hello, and thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank City and State and AARP for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about retirement. I really wish it were talking about my own retirement, but that'll be for another day. I'm a proud member of the baby boom generation. I tried to deny that I was, but when the first thing you think about when you're heading to a speech is, do I have my reading glasses? You know you're in the baby boom generation. But we are the cohort of people born between 1946 and 64, the sandwich generation, which is caring for both kids and parents at the same time, grappling with eye-popping cost of educating our kids and finding help for our elderly loved ones. Anxiety-provoking, to be sure. Yet compared to Generation Xers, the statistics tell us that the baby boomers, we baby boomers, have less cause to hit the bottle or pop the Xanax. So not everyone has the benefit of the state's retirement plan that some of you, including myself, in this room have. I'll tell you the story of the couple who have been scrimping for a long time in retirement. After many years, the wife told her husband the good news. Honey, she said, we finally have enough money to buy what we started saving for in 1979. The husband said, a brand new Cadillac? No, honey, the 1979 Cadillac. Now, if you're the governor, that might be great because he likes old cars, so maybe that is the good thing. It's not easy to reach retirement goals. So I want to talk to you today about three things. First, a few of the driving forces that have made retirement more difficult to reach and have contributed to the serious anxiety, especially for Generation Xers. Second, I want to point out some of the ways that the budget and Governor Cuomo's initiatives are making it a little easier to retire here in New York. We want to make sure you don't move out of the state. Finally, we'll talk about how to encourage personal savings and perhaps some of the principles that we see as important if you're designing a retirement savings program. With that, let's talk a little bit about why anxiety levels might be elevated, particularly amongst Generation Xers. Generation X were harder hit during the recession. In 2007, the unemployment rate for the age group that approximates the baby boom generation was only 3.1%, while unemployment for the age group that approximates Generation X was 4%. By 2010, when the economy was just awful, those rates had risen to 7.5% and 9.1%, respectively, implying a widening unemployment rate gap between boomers and Generation X. Generation X in the 35 to 44 age group saw their median net worth decline by 54% during the crash, which likely understates the decline as a whole. This compares to a 39% decline for young boomers and a 33% decline for older boomers. In addition, many Generation Xers purchased homes at the peak of the housing bubble and thus were particularly hurt when the bubble burst. The largest percentage of households in foreclosure belong to Generation X. By virtue of their age, Generation X already had high debt-to-income ratios than baby boomers before the crisis. Any of you who are still paying off student loans know that all too well. Another factor that is impacting the anxiety levels, I would imagine, of Generation Xers and their ability to save is the trend in unionization. Unionization, labor affiliation, is shrinking. The percentage of the workforce that is unionized has fallen from about 29% in '64 to about 11% in 2014. And the rate of unionization is disproportionately lower for Generation X workers. This is relevant because 82% of union members have access to a traditional pension, compared with 21% of non-union employees. There are a lot of paths to a stable retirement, and a traditional pension is just one of them. But it's one that is less available now than it used to be. This just means that other savings options have become more important, as have other policy changes that help retirees. So I'd like to highlight, just for a few minutes, a few of the things in the governor's budget that recognize and address the challenges of the retirement years. And these are things that were put in effect either this year or last year with last year's budget. Last year, the governor increased the income eligibility for the Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption Program, or SCREE, from $29,000 to $50,000. The program provides a rent freeze for income-eligible seniors who live in rent-regulated units in New York City and some other downstate areas. We expect 22,000 people, additional seniors, will qualify for this exemption. Any of you New York City-based attendees here today certainly understand the pressures that high rents will cause for the elderly in particular. Last year, we also increased funding for emergency home repairs for low-income seniors. We're providing grants of up to $10,000 per unit. And I'm pleased to say that this year's budget made an additional $5 million available for the program. Any discussion of financial health for retirees has to mention access to affordable health care. Our Medicaid pay program is the largest payer of health care and long-term care in New York. Medicaid pays nearly $15 billion a year for in-home and nursing home care for the elderly. And increasingly, we are focused on keeping people in their homes for as long as possible through adequate supports. This includes a $50 million new commitment for caregiver respite services and Alzheimer's programs. Anyone who has been touched by Alzheimer's understands the vital role that caregiver respite provides. The budget adds $2.5 million in grants to support community services for the elderly and $500 for the long-term care ombudsman program. And finally, we provide additional funding for the No Wrong Door initiative as federal funding is set to expire, and the New York Connects program. Both of these programs try to connect seniors with the labyrinth of services that are available. So we've made a lot of key investments that will help people in retirement, but what about the reality of plain old rising costs? How do we deal with that? My elderly neighbor loves to complain about the rising cost of living. He says when he was young, he could bring $1 to the store, he can come back with 5 pounds of potatoes, some bread, a little milk, some soda pop, a dozen eggs, and he laments that that's not possible anymore. He said there are just too many security cameras. But seriously, we have to make sure we're doing whatever we can so that basic costs, like taxes, that government has some control over, don't bury residents. On this front, the state's contribution is twofold. First, Governor Cuomo and the legislature are laser focused on controlling the growth of property taxes so that older New Yorkers can stay in their homes for as long as possible. This includes the tax cap, which lowered property tax growth rates from an annual average of 5.3% to about 2.2%. The cap has already saved the average New York homeowner $800 in just the first 3 years. And anyone who voted in their school budget elections yesterday will hopefully be able to attest when they see their school bill that the tax cap is really working. Governor Cuomo also created the property tax freeze program, which is providing direct relief averaging $656 over 3 years, and is encouraging local government efficiencies that will have long-term benefits. We're also providing enhanced STAR to seniors worth an average of nearly $1,400. And Governor Cuomo proposed a property tax credit based on ability to pay. Didn't happen in this year's session yet, but we haven't given up on that one. Second, the governor recognizes that the only way to keep taxes down for all New Yorkers is to keep spending down. For decades, our spending growth exceeded your income growth. That's just not a sustainable model. We've enacted the 5th consecutive balanced budget that holds spending growth below 2%. So, we've made a lot of progress helping the elderly on the expense side of their home budget. But what about the income side? What about personal savings? Pre-retirement age folks don't believe they can count on Social Security. Many do not have adequate savings or investments, and those who do have investments have lived through very disconcerting times that may have shaken their confidence. and that nervousness is not entirely misplaced. The challenge for policymakers is designing incentives for low and moderate income households to save more for retirement. Recent research in the field of behavioral economics suggests that a successful program should be based on a few principles. I'll lay out what we've taken a look at. I'm sure you guys are the experts in the room, and we would love to engage in a dialogue with you all on it. First, a key principle: availability. Every worker should have easy access to a payroll deduction-based defined contribution plan. Second, auto-enrollment. Evidence suggests that enrollment rates are much higher when workers have to opt out of a plan rather than opt in. It's an interesting concept. Auto investment. There has to be a default investment option or a variety of investment vehicles that provide employees with sensible diversification and asset allocation mix that is automatically rebalanced when asset prices change and is adjusted to employee ages. Fourth, auto escalation. The program should include planned increases in the savings rate that are linked to pay increases. Once signed up, employees remain in the plan until they reach a preset limit or choose to opt out. In the end, it's about setting people up to have a vibrant life in retirement, not just a subsistence life, but a vibrant life. For those of you in state service, you know we have the benefit of the deferred compensation plan. Couldn't be easier. I put my faith in someone that they're going to invest my money well, get my statement every month. Sometimes I grumble that they didn't do so well. A lot of times I say, nice job, whoever you are, with my money. But it couldn't be easier. I saw a local television news anchor recently say, next up, 10 money-saving tips for your trip to Hawaii. Very excited. I'd like to go to Hawaii maybe. Number 1, don't go. So, while personally, and as a state professional, we'd prefer you to vacation in the Adirondacks rather than Hawaii, we do want you to be able to visit Hawaii if it's on your bucket list, if for no other reason than to come back and say the Adirondacks are much, much nicer. So we want to be a partner with you on a dialogue in building the base of a strong retirement. Thanks for inviting me to speak. Thank you for your dedication to this very important issue, and I'd love to stay for the panel, but talk about anxiety, being out of the office for an hour at the end of session is anxiety provoking. So thank you very much.